I really want to, it's in the report, but I want to point out this hugely positive gearing ratio that we achieve. Our overall spend of £3.2 million in the year, and we've received 80% or just under 80% back from external sources. That is pretty staggering. Whether that will continue with the current EU situation, I'm not sure, but I just commend that as a ratio because it really strikes to see the work of getting external funding for this set of communities. Again, as Councillor Grottick's question a second ago, we didn't choose to undertake any borrowing this year to support the capital programme. Instead, we choose to fund for the use of earmarked reserves for those relevant amounts. Although they are reducing, I still consider them to be of reasonable size to maintain the progress of the Council. Moving on to sections 5 and 6, which look at those reserves. They provide an analysis of the general fund reserve and of the earmarked reserves, which we consider to be usable.
3.3.4, because I think we might be in danger of losing a very important thread.
Yes, thank you.
The Chairman of Council suggested that in the interest of clarity we actually delete 3.3.4. Yes. So are you suggesting that we just delete the final bullet point from the implementation of a savings plan?
Well, I think...
in which case I'd be happy to...
just one second. I don't think we got this a proposal on that quite, but Christine suggested amending the sentence, which I think is probably... Yeah, so the two suggestions.
Well, I am happy to go with the Vice Chairman of this committee's suggestion.
So I think that we could take that as a proposal.
Would you be good enough to repeat it, Vice Chair?
If I can remember it. The necessity of a savings plan was approved by full council. The necessity. We do need one. We can't go on without one. Yeah. And identify 12 areas, all that. It would just be that sentence.
Would it be acceptable for my own satisfaction to include in that some wording along the lines of the detail of which yet to be established, or
yes, please,
in consultation with members?
Yeah.
That's the key point that I feel is missing, that I stressed the previous meeting was going down.
Yeah. And bearing in mind this is the government statement for last year, and March was nearly at the end of the financial year. Could be appropriate.
So we have now, has that been now proposed? I believe it has.
Yes.
Isn't it? Seconded? Okay, can we just take that to a vote? I mean, that we may well continue to talk about that, but that's that particular aspect of it.
Before we vote, can we just have the motion read back to us, please?
I was going to say, please.
In its entirety.
Yeah, if there's anybody in the room who's got any idea what it is, please read it back.
We could try out necessity of the savings plan was approved by full council with detail of savings plan to be agreed by members.
In the future.
Do you want a date on that?
Well,
To be agreed by a certain point?
So, I don't actually think it, strictly speaking, needs a date. However, because there's no date here, so is everybody content with that? I mean, I personally don't think we need a date on it. No. So, given what Andy just read out to us, that is now the proposal, and I believe it's... Okay, which is... Well, okay, that's a sort of a... Can I have a second on that? Because that would just clarify the whole thing. It's okay. All those in favour?
Are we taking the whole document or the amendment?
We are taking the whole document.
Excuse me, Chairman, should we not wait for the Chairman of Council to return to the room? Presumably she was just having a word with the Chief Executive.
Oh, I didn't realise she left the room. Okay.
I just
Well, we're still for it.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
you
course.
are
I
free
just
to
wondered
carry
whether or not the Chairman had noticed and whether or not he would prefer to wait.
No, I didn't. I actually didn't notice, though. But I'm very happy to wait for the Chair of Council to return.
You're the Chairman, of course.
I think technically, in fact, I believe that she seconded the motion.
So therefore we
and
can.
you've now amended that, so she should probably, in fact, no, the proposer should be happy that you've
Yes.
changed it.
And you are the proposer.
I still think Councillor Saville was the proposer.
She's got broad shoulders.
Well, I think just wait till the chair of council.
Councillor Saville, she would be happy to incorporate into a proposal my suggestion of the additional wording.
Yes.
She's happy to do.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain what the chair of council's view on this will be. So I think we can safely take this one to a vote at this stage. All those in favour? Oh. It's like a night at the opera, isn't it, sometimes? Right. Now, where we are at the moment, Councillor O'Neill has proposed accepting the whole package. Sorry, Councillor Saville has proposed accepting the whole document with the amended bullet point.
Yeah.
So, and I was about to take it to a vote. So, all those in favour then? Against? Abstentions? Okay, that was painless, wasn't it? Right, which brings us to agenda item 9, capital governance framework. Over to you then, Ben.
Thank you, Chairman. This item was previously presented to the FAS Committee on the 26th of April and subsequently deferred due to fairly mainly cosmetic reasons. The framework has been reviewed again and it's been refined into our corporate template. We've sought to essentially dumb down a lot of the terminology that was there that was causing issues before, to provide a glossary and to show how it would actually work within the current arrangement in the Council. What it does, it seeks to provide an operating manual for how we undertake our capital projects, right from their initial inception, through peer challenge at various stages, from peer groups and staff teams to corporate leadership team, through to the members' panels and committees themselves, and on to the final deployment of resources and agreement of committees. Ownership of this framework rests with Section 151 officer. However, it is important to note that due to the importance of this framework, the vital need for it to be undertaken in the authority to bring consistency, a solid approach and a transparency in decision making throughout the chain, it is essential that we enable it through some sort of administrative support to facilitate the progression of these business cases from their start right through to their committee approval. This will need to be contained within existing budgetary limits and our skill set, but I would stress that it is quite an important task. And in the way that risk management was maintained, this is another essential one that we should make sure that we provide that continuity on business cases through. I haven't got much more to say on that other than that it is a draft document. It has got areas in there that are subject to change. We are currently having our standing orders reviewed and awaiting a kind of revised set of those to bring to the DPP. Until that point, it is pretty pointless putting in item limits in some of the areas. There are some links to documents that haven't been completed yet, but in my opinion, it is substantially complete enough. And in the absence of any form of governance arrangements in situ, I would urge members to consider adopting this document.
Councillor, I think it's Councillor Gottick first.
Yeah, yes.
Councillor Gottick.
Thank you, Chair. Please could Mr Barrett just confirm exactly where we are on this one before we discuss anything that anyone might have to bring forward, that we are actually approving the draft of a capital governance framework that is actually a work in progress, and that presumably it seems to me there are significant areas where obviously it is still exactly what I just said, a work in progress. So can you tell me, will it then be brought back to Finance, Audit and Scrutiny, or will it be brought back to full council? Because it appears that bits of it are going to be subject to ratification by the chair of the 151 officer, but exactly at what point and who makes the decision as to how large a change or revision would trigger the bringing back of this very important document to committee for further discussion?
Thank you, Councillor Grottick. I would suggest that most of the changes that need to be made can be made within collaboration between the Chair and the Section 151, as in most of the supporting documents that's referred to in the appendices. In terms of the amounts, the delegated amounts, standing orders, they will be subject to an agreement by Council anyway, so it would just be a decision made there that would be inputted into this document. I said it's a work in progress. It's actually a dynamic document because it needs to be maintained along the life of the projects themselves.
Councillor Sapp.
Chairman, yes, I was one of the main critics of the previous document that came to this committee, and I have to say I find this document much better and more easily understood. And the way I look at it, currently we have no framework in place. We've all moaned about overspends on different projects that have taken place over the last few years. I believe that there are some extra insertions, as Ben has said, to be put in here, but I think we're now at the stage where we really ought to actually approve this in order to give our officers a form of framework to progress further capital expenditure and development. And, especially as it is being, it's come out an audit report, we need to do something. So, I fully accept Councillor Grottick's viewpoint that in some ways this is a work in process, but I believe it is at a stage when we can actually approve it.
Councillor Billsborough.
Right, Chairman, page 52, paragraph 2.5, it's fairly obvious. All new initiatives must commence in the current year, must be approved by full council. Well, there's no...
Sorry, so I'm just...
Which is in the appendix, yeah.
No, just, where are you?
Oh, sorry, page 52,
okay, fair enough, yeah, okay.
Paragraph 2.5. Yeah. Oh, okay. But, going on from that, if you go to page 57, say, paragraph 6.3, Total Performance Monitor, the capital programme is monitored and reported upon a monthly basis, and this is repeated elsewhere, that these programmes are reported on a monthly basis. Well, who gets this information on a monthly basis? Is it members or committees or what? But it says every month. Is this true? Will it be done?
It isn't currently being done, but it is intended to be. We have got the framework for it to be in place. Can I just, sorry, Councillor Billsborough, come back to you on your point about 2.5. That there is talking about any new capital spend that is required.
Yeah, okay, but just so that it doesn't...
It will need full council approval before it's initiated.
And finally, on page 56, if you look at table 1, and you look at the extreme left-hand column where it says approval level, it says up to pounds, and it doesn't give amounts, it gives XXXXX. What does that mean?
I've referred to this already in this agenda item, Councillor. It's the fact we are awaiting our standing orders and financial regulations to be redone and brought back to DPP. And once they have been agreed and agreed by full council, they will be inserted into this document.
Okay, I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Grottick.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm still rather concerned by page 56, table 1, that it would appear that a project can go up to 10% over budget and still not come back to committee for at least a discussion or some more in-depth discussion on, 10% of a capital project that might run into several millions is going to impact quite greatly on the council's total budget. So it does seem to me that there is a potential for quite a large overspend to occur, hopefully it won't, without the committee having a chance to actually discuss it.
Well,
Your
again,
comment,
this
please?
is going to be put into standing orders, and I think if it's a £25 million project, 10% is a serious issue. I think you would probably have issues when it got to 3 or 4%. It would be, I think it would be horses for courses, but this is the framework, and this type of thing can be examined and filled in a little bit better when standing orders. But I do take your point. I mean,
Nevertheless,
10%,
Chair, it's a
10% can
framework
be
that you're
enormous.
asking us to approve. And
Well, I think perhaps that, yeah, we should note the fact that maybe we should put some absolute numbers in here for figures if they get very large. I mean, you can get
if you'd
carried
like
away.
to put in subject to further ratification, then I'd be comfortable with it, but 10% as it stands, I would not be comfortable with.
Okay, fair point. But I mean, I think that 10% is, from what I've gathered, and I may be wrong, 10% is basically the standard amount throughout the country. However, I do accept that in absolute terms, it could be awful.
It doesn't sit well with an authority that is struggling to balance the books, I would suggest.
I don't know if you'd like to say anything, Ben.
I need to echo the chairman's point. Is actually, sorry, just echoing the chairman's point, Councillor Grottick, that the 10% is actually a fairly standard document that you'll see in any county unitary across the country. But I'll take your point on that.
In absolute terms, Councillor Grottick, is the fact that the approval level will have a significant effect on that, and that we've got to decide on anyway. In absolute terms, if we're talking about a project of £10,000, it's not massive, but I don't think for 1 minute that we would approve a 10% overspend on projects up to £2.5 million. No, I wouldn't. And I don't think the rest of the council
But
would
with
be.
respect, you're not going to have the chance, Councillor Molson. Sorry, Chairman, I didn't
Sorry,
go
can
through
I-
the chair.
That's where we've got to approve the figures that go in there.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's up to X, whether it be 10 or
Whatever it is.
£25,000 or
Yeah.
a
So
percentage.
When we get that information
So-
that we need in order to fill in the
Yeah.
blanks with the figures, then we will need to ratify that, and if we
Yeah.
feel at the time it's appropriate to adjust the
we-
framework, and we can, but
we as a-
10% would be considered a standard.
We as a council, a full council, have got full reign to limit that spend as to whatever limit we want to put on it. There is no suggestion at all of what we can do. If we wanted to put it at £5, we can do that. But if we want to put it at 50,000 or 500,000, we can do that as well. So therefore, the absolute terms of it, of an overspend on £2.5 million, is very unlikely to occur because we're not going to approve. I would understand that we are not going as a council to approve an upper limit of £2.5 million.
Theoretically, when we get the information and we fill in the blanks with the figures, we could also, if we were minded to, just add in an additional layer, couldn't we, at 7% over a certain figure, if it's £10 million or something, or whatever. We have the power and the ability to be able to deal with that as and when we get the relevant figures, can't we? But at the moment, a 10% contingency fund on an unknown amount seems to be reasonable.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as we said, it's a up to XXX, say 25,000 as an example, or that. So if you breach that 25,000 limit, it would automatically come through that channel anyway. So I think for your financial regulations, your standing orders, you'll kind of limit the risk and the exposure of that event.
Would you be good enough to minute that clarification then, and on that basis, I'm more comfortable, and I would imagine other colleagues would be too. Obviously, I can't speak for them.
I mean, I think this introduces more checks and balances than we currently have, which is the important thing. We're about improving the process. And obviously, all projects would have been approved at council, capital expenditure, and it should have been brought through committee as well. So, in my mind, it's actually improving the whole of the situation.
Well, given that it's a draft and it is still subject to revision, I don't think we need any change to the recommendation as long as Councillor Grottick is happy that Mr Thomas has minuted. So if there are no other comments...
I'll propose it.
Seconded by Councillor O'Neill, and all those in favour? Unanimous, I think. Agenda item 10, internal audit recommendations. progress monitoring.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take this on behalf of the Office of Policy and Scrutiny.
Okay.
Item 10 provides a self-assessment of the current progress against the internal audit recommendations. It also seeks approval from the committee to proceed in the procurement of an internal audit function, as the previous one-year agreement with Cornwall Council has come to its has now lapsed. I'd like to draw members' attention to paragraph 1.10 in the table 2 on page 65. That provides a breakdown of the 10 remaining outstanding recommendations, classified according to their perceived barriers. And this is going to be classified according to my section 151, linking with the Office of Policy and Scrutiny to work out why we aren't able to resolve these outstanding issues. 5 of these are related to current system security and process issues. We do require investment in certain systems to ensure they're fit for purpose, to help them to operate effectively, and to remove the control risks that currently exist. The primary example within the finance section of this is our current council tax and business rates system, which we're still running on an archaic access database. When our counterparts on the mainland are using modern supported systems that are updated effectively following any changes to relevant legislation. So that's just one example. So until those systems are actually replaced, we are never going to be able to actually fulfil that recommendation. A number of the outstanding recommendations falter due to the current resourcing of the finance team, which you're all acutely aware of. And the remaining 2 outstanding recommendations are due to external factors. I do need to draw your attention to the table 2 and paragraph 1.7 on page 64. We've actually realised today that there's an error in the phase 1, 2 and 3 implemented and partially implemented recommendations. It doesn't balance to the 10 that are outstanding as at the end of the year. So I will ask if we can forward a paper to members with the replacements.
Councillor Bills.
Yes, I've got 2 questions, very brief, Chairman. On page 67, 4.2, legal, it says the Council may become liable for legal action if it does not implement the recommendation highlighted by the internal audit. Are we getting to a stage where we are in danger of any legal action being taken because we have not complied with the recommendations of legal? Is it at the dangerous stage yet?
Not with any of these outstanding audit recommendations, no.
Okay, right. And finally, Chairman, the print on page 69 and 70 is minute print, which I can just read. I notice on reading it in the first 2 columns, it's all the bad news. Now, I'm not suggesting this is intentional, but I would suggest that if we have this kind of layout, we either, if you put it on A3 as we did in the old days, or expand the print, it can be read, but it's not easy. That's all, Chairman. I'll finish now.
Well, I read it online. I do take your point because I can hardly read it with glasses. Yes. I would, with your first point, I do think, and I have said this before in these meetings, very much that the auditors look at direction of travel, and if direction of travel is improving, then that's basically what they want. And I think our direction of travel has been pretty positive over the last 18 months or so.
I didn't want us to cross the red line or be dragged across the red line because we hadn't complied. So I'm assured now this isn't a danger.
I think we crossed that red line ages ago, but on the correct side. But I would hardly say we're sprinting into the sunlit uplands yet. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ben.
Just to say that they are recommendations outstanding, so they are what the auditors perceive to be control risks for us that do need to be resolved. But I wouldn't say they are as far as requiring legal sanction against us yet.
Thank you. Please could Mr Barrett give a little bit more information about recommendation number 2, that members agree to procure a further internal audit contract with a start date of 16/17 as the current contract has elapsed. Would that be an annual contract or a 6-month contract? In other words, when's the finish date or the break point when we can discuss whether or not, presumably, we might have other arrangements in place?
Thank you, Councillor. I was actually kind of come on to that. The previous internal audit contract was for 12 months, and that's not really the norm. We would prefer to have a minimum, probably a 3-year term, It enables the auditor to get to understand us as a body and to have some consistency in their approach to us. And it's useful to phase pieces of work over a 3 to 5 year plan, perhaps. So I would hope that we'd be looking at a 3 to 5 year term for appointment of internal auditors.
Councillor, no, unless you wish to add anything else?
Well, I just wondered how it worked. I mean, presumably, if everything is working happily and everyone is comfortable with the arrangements, then obviously it would be wise for a degree of continuity to continue. I was just wondering if you had breakpoints in such a contract, I'm not suggesting that we might get a situation where it's to everybody's best interest, but we could move in a different direction.
It would be using standard procurement law, so we would have break clauses in contracts. We'd have to do a full tender process for this.
Thank you, that's reassuring, that's fine.
Thank you.
Councillor Mawson.
I know that we have the Finance Department has made significant progress in implementing the Audit Commission recommendations, and the point I'd just like to make is that I would like it noted that I think there is significant potential after member leaves that there could be slippage on this, and I really am concerned that that may be a situation that we don't want to find ourselves in the future. It's very easy for me to sit here and say that, and I know that Ben's got no control over that whatsoever, but I just like it noted that I think there is potential for slippage within that, and we all of us need to keep our eye on the ball, very much so, and scrutinise the arrangements after Ben's departure and make sure that those recommendations are continued to be implemented on a progressive basis.
Well, I think we can all sort of concur with that, Councillor Mawson. Chair of Council?
Oh, thank you. I was just going to say that I will move the recommendations 1 and 2.
Do we have a second?
Chairman, can I just ask?
You may.
Recommendation 2, are we going out to tender again, or are we just procuring another year's contract with Cornwall?
I'm suggesting that we go out to tender again.
Yeah, good. That's what I was hoping.
No, I don't want to roll on.
Actually, it doesn't.
Sorry, it's not explicit in there, is it? Apologies.
Yeah. Oops.
Right. All those in favour? Well, that is unanimous, which brings us to agenda item. No, which brings us to actually there are some Part 2 reports, which brings us to Part 3 and the exclusion of the public, which means I need this one, yes. So, reports containing exempt information. Under section 100, bracket A, close bracket, open 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of that Act as amended, being information about the business affairs of a particular person or persons.
I move, Chairman.
Okay. In the